Finally, we get some clarity on good faith estimates and how they are going to impact you in your practice every day. I know there's been a lot of confusion since they're rolling this out. It kind of seems like as they go, but this is how new federal regulations get rolled out. They roll them out, they wait for comments, and then they adjust as they go. So we just got an adjustment this week, the first week of April 2022. We're going to jump right into it and how you can use these to comply with the rule and make your life simpler at the same time. But before we do all that, if you like this video or if you liked any of the videos that I put out on this channel, please hit subscribe. It really does help, as everybody on YouTube will tell you. It does help the channel and allows me to continue doing these free contents for you. So please smash the like and the bell and the subscribe and all that cool stuff. All right, so let's jump right into it. New this week on the blog as well at Functional Lawyer, which there will be a link below this video, is the full text of a new frequently asked questions publication that was presented or was published by HHS, the Department of Health and Human Services. So they're answering some of the more frequently asked questions with official opinions. Keep in mind, this is not fully it doesn't have the same authority as law or regulation, but it does give us a good sense of what the agency in charge of implementing this rule is. It gives us a sense of what they're going to, how they're going to interpret it moving forward based on the feedback they got from practitioners. So for my audience, most of you will focus on the first 5 questions of this FAQ sheet, and there's also a link to the actual PDF from HHS below as well. So let's jump right into it. A lot of people were confused because the regulation says every GFE must have a diagnosis code. Well, the first frequently asked question is, how am I supposed to do a diagnosis code for an initial visit, initial screening? So they came out and said, you don't have to have one for that. So at the time of scheduling, you may not know the diagnosis code. Initial screening visits and checkups, or in instances when there's not a relevant diagnostic code, they say, no, you don't have to have one. To the extent you can have one that's accurate, include it, but it's not a requirement in those circumstances. They also say comply with other state and federal laws around that issue. But one big tidbit in that answer that hasn't really been highlighted yet before, or I haven't seen it highlighted, is kind of a bonus FAQ here, that the GFE is considered part of the patient's record set. So it needs to be protected like PHI and kept as part of their medical record. So that was a huge, they kind of slipped it into that answer. They didn't really highlight it very much, but for those of you keeping track at home, which you should all be if you're watching this video, that GFE document itself is part of the record set. And so it has the same privacy restrictions as any of their medical records do. The second one is, are you required to provide expected charges for future visits in the same GFE provided for an initial visit? The answer is no. However, if you know that, if someone comes in for an initial visit and you're going to want them to come in for lab results at the second visit, you should probably include that second visit in the first GFE, because it's pretty clear that you're going to ask them to come back. But the answer is officially no. You don't have to include future visits that are not reasonably expected. You can reasonably expect someone to come in for a follow-up, so you should probably include that. But they're trying to be reasonable here with you. At the same time, you should be reasonable as well. If you can reasonably anticipate this is the track they're going to go down, try to include those and then move on from there. But the official answer is no, you don't have to do it for those that are not reasonably expected to be furnished in conjunction with the primary service or item. So that's why I kind of harped on, if you can reasonably expect it, then include it on the first one. Third question is, for recurring items or services, do you have to provide a new GFE for each individual visit, let's say? The answer is no. For recurring visits, you can just do one GFE, and you could multiply it by 6, or you can list it out itemized by 6, let's say, if they needed 6 visits for of the identical thing, like 6 PT visits. But importantly, they highlight there also that If it's recurring and it's supposed to recur for more than 12 months, you have to give them a new GFE after the 12th month to start over on the recurring visits. So maybe you're a therapist that wants to see this person every week. So you give them one GFE for 52 weeks, but then they still need therapy the next year. So you have to give them another one on that 53rd week is what they're trying to say. I encourage you to read these all in detail because, you know, this is YouTube, this is a blog, it's not a replacement for an attorney. You can talk to me, you can find me at functionallawyer.com or find an attorney in your jurisdiction that understands healthcare law and alternative healthcare medicine. Question 4, how do providers and facilities address situations where unforeseen items or services that were not otherwise scheduled in advance are furnished during a visit? Said another way, they come in for X and then you realize, let's, for example, they're low, they haven't had their tetanus shot in a while. Real life example right here. And so you give them a tetanus shot in the visit. That wasn't on the GFE, but you decided, let's just take care of it now. They don't require you to put that in there, again, because it may not have been reasonably expected of you. Once you deliver the GFE, you didn't realize I hadn't had a tetanus shot in forever. That's just the example, but you understand the example. I'm just running with the metaphor. It says, if you do furnish an item or service that was not included and the difference is more than $400, higher than the original GFE, that person still may initiate this dispute resolution process that they've also created here. So I would say, you know, talk to your patients, you know, let them know, hey, this was unexpected. It wasn't on your GFE. If it costs more than $400 than you quoted in your GFE, you may want to just wait till the next appointment so that you don't trigger the dispute process. That's another one that kind of has to be delicately managed there. So read that one in full carefully. That was question number 4. Is a provider required to provide a GFE to uninsured or self-pay individuals for same day or walk-in service? Answer is no. I mean, there's no way you could have reasonably anticipated them coming in. The rules are you're supposed to give it to them, you know, if you have time, 3 days before their visit, or if you don't have time, at least 1 day before their visit. But if you can't, you know, do it because you weren't expecting them that day or less than 24 hours, or they just walked through your doors, HHS is being reasonable, saying you don't have to give them GFE. Question 6 is a little bit wonky. I'm surprised it's frequently asked, but here we go. So suppose when the person schedules the initial appointment, they have insurance. Now it's your duty, let's stop right here, that when someone schedules with you, if you take insurance, to ask them if they have insurance or not. If they take insurance, none of this really matters. So this, we're talking about GFEs for people who are not insured at all, or who are self-pay under the definitions here, which just means they have insurance, but they're going to pay you cash. So if they're one of those two things, you issue them a GFE. But in this last question, the question is, supposing when they schedule, they have insurance, but then when they come in, they don't have insurance anymore, or they've decided to self-pay, so you never issued them the GFE. Does that mean, suppose they do not, must you provide a GFE to the individual prior to providing the service? No, is the answer. So, I mean, you already asked if they had insurance, they said yes, and so you don't have to provide a GFE in that instance if they're planning to use their insurance to pay you. But if some circumstances change and they show up and it's changed, you don't have to then reschedule the appointment or quickly generate a GFE to give to them right away. You know, if you're a cash pay practice in the first place and your prices are pretty transparent, it shouldn't be that hard and that person shouldn't be upset at all. But that's kind of it's a longer answer and is, you know, less likely to happen for most functional practices who are cash pay. But if you do take insurance, this is something to keep in mind. So it's your job to ask them if they have insurance and if they plan on using it to pay you. If those two answers are yes, then you don't need to provide GFEs. unless circumstances change and then they're self-pay or uninsured for whatever reason, then you need to, then start focusing on GFEs for visit 2 and beyond for that patient. So just a quick reminder, this is not the Q&As and the answers, so the FAQs and the answers that go along with them, the A's, don't have the force and effect of law or regulation. These are just kind of advisory opinion guidance from HHS, which again is still pretty powerful because they are the agency tasked with enforcing this regulation. So, but they do a kind of a disclaimer at the end there that says, hey, this doesn't have the full force of law. For a variety of reasons, they're not allowed to legislate because they're an executive branch office. They're just kind of opining on how they will interpret it when they go to enforce it, because they're the executives that enforce the laws, the executive branch of the United States. So a little bit wonky there, but just keep in mind that, even if you follow everything here, there could be a contradiction down the road, which is why you should talk to an attorney if you have any questions or you need clarity on this at all. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in the next video. Again, please subscribe. That helps, and we will see you next time.